Welcome back, dear students and friends. In the previous session, we were discussing chapter number 3. It's plant kingdom. In this plant kingdom, in the previous session, you have learned regarding the classification of plant kingdom. In this classification of a plant kingdom, the plant can be divided into 5 main classes. The first, algae. Second, bryophytes. Third, pteridophytes. Fourth, gymnosperm, and the fifth one is angiosperm. As you go from algae to angiosperm, the complexity of living organism gets increased. So that we have discussed in the previous session. Now, today we are also going to discuss regarding the algae. But before we discuss the types of algae, I will just tell you the general information about the algae, what you have learned in the previous session. So what is an algae? The first thing is that the algae, they are the chlorophyll bearing, means they are the plant and they are chlorophyll bearing. If you say it's a body organization, it is very simple. The organs are not divided into root, stem, leaf. They have very simple organization. Their mode of nutrition is autotrophic and they are mostly found in the aquatic habitats. Usually they are found nearer to a moist stones, soils and the wood that we have seen. There are also few examples of algae, that these are the examples of algae that have been listed down. So this is a general introduction about algae. Now we are moving ahead in the reproduction in the algae. The algae, they reproduces by 3 ways. First is vegetative reproduction, second asexual reproduction, and in sexual reproduction. In vegetative reproduction by fragmentation, in asexual reproduction by formation of zoospores, which are mostly flagellated, and the third, sexual reproduction, that occurs by the fusion of 2 gametes. This we have discussed in the previous session. Even we have also seen how the sexual reproduction occurs in an algae. Along with this, we have also discussed the importance or the uses of algae. So this topic we have finished in the previous session. In the previous session, we have seen that the algae can be categorized or even subdivided into 3 classes. So which are the main 3 classes of algae? First class is called as Chlorophyceae. The second one is called as Phaeophyceae. And the third one is called as Rhodophyceae. Remember students, these are the 3 main classes of algae. Algae can be again divided into 3 classes: Chlorophyceae, Phaeophyceae and Rhodophyceae. We have to discuss each one in detail and they are very much important from examination point of view. So let's discuss the first one. It's called as a Chlorophyceae. We will discuss first a Chlorophyceae. This Chlorophyceae can be called as, what is another name of this Chlorophyceae? This is called as green algae. Remember Chlorophyceae, chloro means it is a green. So that's why it's called as a green algae. Why it is called as a green algae? Because here it contains a pigment called as chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. These are the 2 pigments are present in the chloroplast of this algae, and due to a presence of this pigment, their color is like a green in color or the grass green in color. So that's why we are calling it as green algae. So which pigments are present in it? Chlorophyll A and the chlorophyll B. These are the pigments you can find it in a Chlorophyceae. If you see the body organization, it is an algae, so obviously it's a very simple body organization can be observed. This Chlorophyceae is a unicellular, means made up of just a 1 cell, which may either also exist in the form of colony or it may also exist in the form of filament. Like for an example, here I have shown the Chlamydomonas. This is a Chlamydomonas. This Chlamydomonas is a unicellular algae that falls under a class called as Chlorophyceae. It's a green in color. This is the another example. Here you can say that the algae that is organized into a colony. See here you can see a multiple organisms are present. But each green dot, here you can see each green dot that is representing a single algae or that is a single organism. But they are living together in the colony. Okay. So such colonial form can also be observed in the volvox. So volvox and the chlamydomonas, they are the examples of a chlorophyceae. So in short, chlorophyceae are the green algae. It contains a pigment called as chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. And that's why they are grass green in color. Their body organization is either unicellular or colonial or filamentous form. Okay, so this is present. Now you know that the pigments, they are present in the chlorophyceae, they are present in chloroplast. But here, along with the chloroplast, they also have a special cavities. And these special cavities are called as pyrenoids. Chlorophyceae have a special cavity in their cell, what we call it as pyrenoid. In this pyrenoid, the food that is prepared by this algae by a process photosynthesis is stored in the form of a starch. So in the chlorophyceae, the prepared food by it is stored in a pyrenoid, a special cavity, in the form of a starch. Along with the starch, the pyrenoid also contains the proteins, and they can also store the food in the form of oil droplets. So such kind of a thing you can find it into a chlorophyceae. If you see the cell wall of this algae, the inner layer of this chlorophyceae, it's made up of cellulose, means primarily it's made up of cellulose, and the outer layer it's made up of pectose. This kind of a layer that you can find in the chlorophyceae. Now let's move ahead with another top point in chlorophyceae, and that is regarding a reproduction. Like other algae, the chlorophyceae can reproduce by three ways. First, vegetative reproduction. Second, asexual reproduction. Third, sexual reproduction. In vegetative reproduction, it reproduces by fragmentation or by the formation of different types of the spores. In asexual reproduction, by the formation of zoospores. And you know that zoospores are the motile and the flagellated. Sexual reproduction, that involves the formation and the fusion of gametes. This gamete may be either isogamous, anisogamous, or oogamous. And the examples of chlorophyceae are chlamydomonas, volvox, eulothrix, spirogyra, and last it is chara. Okay, this is the example you can find in a chlorophyceae. So remember the example. Which are the example? Chlamydomonas, volvox, eulothrix, spirogyra, and the chara. These are the examples of chlorophyceae. So in any kind of algae, you have to remember this much point. The first, what is its common name? The body organization, habitat where it can be found, which are the pigments present in it, in which form it stores a food, what kind of cell wall it has, and the material that is present in a cell wall, reproduction, and the examples. If you write down these 7-8 points, then your short note is ready. This is a short note that is regarding a chlorophyceae. Let's move ahead with another kind of a algae, and this is called as Phaeophyceae. This is the second type, what we are calling it as Phaeophyceae. And this Phaeophyceae can be called as a brown algae. Remember, chlorophyceae is called green algae. Phaeophyceae it's called as a brown algae. This is a algae that is primarily found in the sea or in a marine water. It is found in a moist water, but specifically it's found into a marine water. In the fresh water, it is rarely found. So in the fresh water, the brown algae cannot be found mostly. Now come to a body organization. If you see its body organization is very simple, but it is a branched. So here you can see different branches are going to be formed. Okay, these are the different branches which are going to be formed. Okay, so it is a simple, but it's a branched. And when it is a branch and the filament form, it just have a 1 to 2 branch. The example of such kind of a algae is ectocarpus. But when it is heavily branched, lots of branches are that, or you can say profusely branched, such type of a branching can be observed in a marine algae called as kelp. We have seen that kelp is one of the marine algae. We have discussed it as one of the example. So the body organization, simple, branched, filamentous, or profusely branched. Just the simple and the branched organization is observed in ectocarpus, and profuse branching can be observed in a kelp. Now here if you see the plant body organization, there are three parts in it. The first one is called as holdfast. Second one, it's called as a stipe. And the third one is called as a frond. This is the third part, frond. This is the second part, what you can say, a stipe. Clear? Three parts are observed. So here the holdfast, that is attached to a substratum. Substratum means on which the algae grows. So something it's like a root. Along with that, it also has a stem-like portion. This is a stem-like portion. And we are calling it as stipe. A stipe can be observed in it. So this is a stipe. Okay. Next, it also has a somewhat leaf-like structure and we are calling it as frond. And this frond is working as a photosynthetic organ. So in the brown algae, there are three main important parts. I just underlined. The first one is called as holdfast, that attaches with a substratum. Second, stipe. It is a stalk-like portion, provides a support. The third one, it's a frond. It is a photosynthetic part. So in the body organization, you can find these three parts. Like here in fucus, you can see the three part: holdfast, stipe, and the frond. Similarly, here you can see that it is a very profusely branched. Lots of branches are present. But it also has a stipe, frond, and such kind of a structure can be found in it. Here, which pigments are present? You know that in green algae, the chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B are present. In brown algae or this Phaeophyceae, the pigments present are chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, carotenoids, and the xanthophyll. So these four pigments can be found in a Phaeophyceae. It is called as a brown algae because most of the time its color is brown, but the color may vary depending on the amount of pigment present in it. And here the brown color, it depends on the amount of xanthophyll and the fucoxanthin. These are the pigments. Based on their concentration or the amount, the color may going to be vary. And so that's why the color may vary from olive green to a brown. It depends on the amount of this xanthophyll and fucoxanthin. Here the food is stored in the form of complex carbohydrate. Like here the food is stored in the form of laminarin or mannitol. Whereas in the green algae, the food is stored in the form of a starch or the oil droplets. Here the cell wall is made up of cellulose, but this cellulose is covered by a hydrocolloid material called as algae because they are living in the sea water. Next, regarding the reproduction, same way, in vegetative reproduction it occurs by fragmentation, asexual reproduction by motile spores which are biflagellate, means it has two flagella, and these two flagella are unequal. Sexual reproduction by fusion of gametes, which may be isogamous, anisogamous, or eogamous. Here the fusion of gametes that takes place within a water, or it may takes place within the oogonium. So here the examples, which are the examples of this Phaeophyceae: Ectocarpus, Dictyota, Laminaria, Sargassum, Fucus. You have to remember the examples. In Chlorophyceae, the examples are Chlamydomonas, volvox, eulothrix, spirogyra, and the chara. Here in Phaeophyceae, the examples are Ictocarpus, Dictyota, Laminaria, Sargassum, and the Fucus. So these are the examples of a Phaeophyceae. So that's all about the algae Phaeophyceae. Next, the last type of a algae is the Rhodophyceae. This is the last type, Rhodophyceae. It is a Rhodophyceae algae, and here the color is red, and hence we are calling it as red algae. So now you know the other names of all these three algae: Chlorophyceae, green algae; Phaeophyceae, brown algae; and Rhodophyceae, it's a red algae. The Chlorophyceae is unicellular, but here the Rhodophyceae is a multicellular. That means it's made up of many cells. Even they also have a similar structures like holdfast, stripe, and the frond. So they have a complex body organization. Here the pigments present are chlorophyll A, chlorophyll D, and the phycoerythrin. Here the main pigment is phycoerythrin, and due to this phycoerythrin, this gives a red color. The red color is due to this phycoerythrin pigment. Here also they are living in a marine water or the sea, but here they can also be found. Sometimes it can also be found in the fresh water. Whereas the previous one, that is Phaeophyceae, they are marine primarily and they are rarely found in a fresh water. But here few Rhodophyceae members can be found in the fresh water. Even in the marine water, its higher concentration can be found in the warmer areas. If you see in the sea, there are the different areas, warm and the cool areas. So here their concentration is primarily found in the warmer areas. In Rhodophyceae, the food is stored in the form of Floridian starch. What is a Floridian starch? Floridian starch is also a carbohydrate, and its structure is similar to an amylopectin and the glycogen. These are the other type of a carbohydrate to which its structure is related. So this is some points regarding a Chlorophyceae. Now regarding a cell wall, its cell wall, as it is a plant, obviously its cell wall is made up of cellulose. Reproduction occurs by three ways as usual. Vegetative reproduction by fragmentation. Asexual reproduction. Remember here in Rhodophyceae, the asexual reproduction occurs by a spore, but here the spores are non-motile. In the previous two, that is Chlorophyceae and the Phaeophyceae, motile spores are present. What we are calling it as zoospores. But here non-flagellated, non-motile spores are present which are responsible for asexual reproduction. In the sexual reproduction, that occurs by non-motile gametes. And the examples are Polysiphonia, Porphyria, Gracilaria, and the Galidium. If you see over here, it's look like a plant, but it is not organs. It doesn't have organs. It have a complex organization. It is multicellular, but it doesn't have any organs. Okay, so such kind of a structure you can find in the Rhodophyceae. So either of these can be asked. So just when we summarize all this part, Chlorophyceae, Phaeophyceae, and the Rhodophyceae, these are the summarization. Its common name, Chlorophyceae, can be called as green algae. Okay, it's called as a green algae. Phaeophyceae, brown algae, and Rhodophyceae, red algae. The main thing that is present, the color is due to presence of pigments. So here in Chlorophyceae, the pigments are chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B. In Phaeophyceae, the pigments are chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, and fucoxanthin. In Rhodophyceae, the pigments are chlorophyll A, chlorophyll D, and phycoerythrin. Here if you see, the chlorophyll A is present in all because it's a main pigment. Now come over the habitat. These are found mainly in the fresh water, but it can also be found in the marine water. Here the Chlorophyceae can also be found in a brackish water. Brackish water, that means it is somewhat salty than fresh water, but less salty than the salt water or the marine water. Similarly, Phaeophyceae, it's mainly found in a marine water, that is salt water. It's rarely found in fresh water. Fresh water is rarely found. And Rhodophyceae, it is again found into a marine water or salt water, but there are few exceptions which can found in a fresh water. So this is their habitat. Now in Chlorophyceae, the food is stored in the form of a starch in a pyrenoid cavities. Whereas in Phaeophyceae, it is stored in the form of mannitol and the laminarine. And here in the Rhodophyceae, it is stored in the form of Floridian starch. Now when it comes to a cell wall, in Chlorophyceae, it's primarily made up of cellulose. In Phaeophyceae, it's made up of cellulose and there is an outer covering of algae. And in Rhodophyceae, it's made up of cellulose. In the first two, the flagella are present, but in the Rhodophyceae, the flagella are absent. So these are the overview of the three types of algae: Chlorophyceae, Phaeophyceae and Rhodophyceae. So students, learn it properly. It's very important. Most of the times the questions are going to be asked from either of these algae. It's very easy to remember. You just have to remember the few points like their habitat, body organization, another name, pigment, food storage, cell wall and reproduction. This you have to remember. Okay, so that's all about the algae. Here we have finished with the first class of a plant kingdom, that is algae. The second class of a plant kingdom is bryophytes. Second class of plant kingdom, that is bryophyte. That we will discuss this bryophyte in the next session. Till then students, keep learning, keep watching, like and subscribe this channel. Thank you for watching.